University of Pittsburgh, it's high school basketball action at its best. Quarterfinal action, state playoffs, AAA boys action. And tonight it'll be the Blackhawk Cougars, the Section 2 champions, taking on the WPIAL champions, the Hurricanes of Newcastle. Hello everybody, I'm Bob Hannon. I'll be calling the play-by-play of tonight's action, and what a dream matchup we have here this evening. The Canes have been looking to this basketball game for a long time, and so have the Cougars. Let's take a look at it from the Blackhawk viewpoint. They won the Section 2 championship. They beat Newcastle at Blackhawk 47-42, and that's the type of game Blackhawk likes to play. They like to control the tempo, have the game in the 40s or low 50s, and they feel they can win the basketball game. For Don Ross's Hurricanes, it's run-and-gun offense, led by Barry Wetzel, the 5'8" senior point guard, and the Canes would prefer the game to be in the high 50s or low 60s. That is much more to their liking. So it's the Canes and Blackhawk. The Canes only losing 2 games in the section, both coming to Blackhawk, 47-42 at Blackhawk, and 63-60 at Newcastle. This place is in bedlam. There are over 3,400 Canes fans here this evening and approximately 1,600 or 1,700 Blackhawk fans. The key to tonight's game, as I talked to Coach Ross before the contest, control the tempo. Newcastle feels if they can get the lead, they can get it into a running basketball game, and in the second half, open up the court, use their spread offense, and use the speed to their advantage. Let's take a look at some of the key personnel for tonight's contest. When you talk about Newcastle basketball, one name comes to mind right off the bat. It's the 5'8" point guard Barry Wetzel, and in the playoffs he's been averaging about 12 points per game. And just thinking back, I don't ever remember a high school basketball player putting on the performance he put on at Farrell High School, where he come out at the start of the fourth quarter and tossed in 10 points. And Newcastle has been very successful at Farrell, some places. Other places the Canes have not done so well, but Ed McCluskey Gym has been a good spot for the Canes to play. And Blackhawk, on the other hand, their big man will be Jay Irwin. Jay Irwin comes into tonight's game, a 6'4" senior, averaging 15 points a game in the playoffs. And by the way, Blackhawk only lost 1 game in the section, and their loss came at Farrell. So we expect a great ball game this evening. The winner will advance to the semifinals of the state playoffs Thursday evening against Penn Hills or Erie McDowell, and they are playing, they played last night, by the way. They played up at Westminster, and I had a chance to see Penn Hills play Saturday evening. Very impressive. They knocked off Latrobe, and they won handily, close to 20-some points, and the crowd level here this evening will be very high for both clubs because it is an intense and emotional rival. Other personnel for both clubs in the playoffs, Jimmy Brown has been spectacular. Jimmy Brown has averaged close to 15 points a game and 11 rebounds. And a little bit later on, we'll take a look at both starting lineups. I feel the key to tonight's game will be how well the backcourt of Blackhawk and Newcastle match up against each other. I feel if the Canes can put some pressure on Blackhawk, I feel they can rattle Dan Vanderwall and possibly come up with some turnovers. I saw the Latrobe Blackhawk game. Latrobe rattled Blackhawk with the full court pressure, and in the second half, Dan Irwin had to bring the basketball up court because Vanderwall was having all kinds of problems. So we're expecting a great matchup. Both clubs on the court warming up. The Canes tonight will be in their white uniforms trimmed in red, and Blackhawk in their green uniforms trimmed in gold. And as we said, the Canes lost both times to Blackhawk. Down at Blackhawk, Blackhawk played a near-perfect game. Up at Newcastle, they hit everything, and they played, I'd say, the finest game I've seen this year. But this Newcastle basketball team could be a team of destiny. Let's take a look back at the playoffs. The Canes open with Valley, triple overtime. They win 64-59. Valley had a player at the free throw line with 6 seconds. He missed the second end of a 1-and-1 in the first overtime. The Canes turn around and beat Center 72-67. After that, they're playing Norwin. 16 seconds to go in the game. Norwin has the basketball and the travel call inside. The Canes win it 61-56. Latrobe, the game was close. The Canes blew Latrobe out in the fourth quarter, 73-49, and that was for the WPIAL championship. Then turning to the state playoffs, the Canes beat Erie Prep 55-51, and who will ever forget Saturday evening when Frank Bonjavingo told Coach Ross, I think I can hit the shot, and that's exactly what he did, and the Canes won it 71-69. So if you believe in destiny, you got to go with the Canes tonight, but Blackhawk feels they're the better basketball team. John Miller, the head coach of Blackhawk, says the Canes stole the WPIAL title. The Newcastle fans say they stole the section title. So it should be a great matchup. And before we proceed with more of our pregame activities, we do have an announcement from Cable Entertainment.
Good evening, cable entertainment of Newcastle cable TV subscribers. This is last night's replay of the boys state class PIAA quarterfinal playoff basketball game between the Newcastle Red Hurricanes and the Blackhawk Cougars. This is a public service from Cable Entertainment of Newcastle to its cable TV subscribers. The filming of the basketball game is being handled by the non-professional students of Newcastle High School, and the play-by-play of tonight's game is being done by Bob Hannon, former WKSD sports director. We hope you enjoy the replay of the ball game tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill Jones. And once again, this is a public service to the Newcastle community area, and I think a lot of people have to be appreciative of the job Ralph Peluso has done from Cable Entertainment to get these games on the cable, and also Tom DiMuccio, the athletic director at Newcastle High School. There's not a more classier gentleman you'll find, and one of the fine athletic directors in the area. Last Tuesday, before the Erie prep game, he called Ralph up. That's Ralph Peluso, and said, is there any way we can get the games on live? Ralph said no, but we'll get them on tape delay, and hopefully Saturday night we'll be coming to you from Chocolatetown, USA, Hershey, Pennsylvania for the state finals. But two big obstacles in the way, and tonight the Canes must take their attention to Blackhawk. And a lot of times after coming off a game such as the Bethel Park win 71-69, the kids will be flat. That will not be the problem tonight. Don Ross will have no trouble getting the kids up for Blackhawk after losing both times to Blackhawk in the regular season. What more can you say about Don Ross? Maligned for a few years, given a one-year contract. A lot of people questioned his ability. I think he has silenced all the critics now. He's a fine, fine basketball coach and has done a great job with this program. John Miller of Blackhawk came over from Riverside. Just a season ago, they were 5-18, and this year they were the Section 2 champions. Also a fine showing for Section 2 tonight. Two teams playing from the same section goes to show the strength of Section 2. As I said, a near-capacity crowd. We're just a couple minutes away from the opening tip. And what can we look for tonight? Don Ross told me today that he feels Blackhawk has some of the best shooters in the WPIAL, and he feels his club will have to play a lot of man-to-man, switch up a lot of defenses, because if you sit back in a zone, the shooters on the wing, in particular Dennis Mayer, along with Dan Vanderwall, and also the big guy, Jay Irwin, will just kill you from the outside. The Canes feel they are quicker, they can play man-to-man. Defensively from Blackhawk, look for a 3-2 defense. They like to play the 3-2. They like to bring the 6'4" senior Jay Irwin out at the top of the key and put a lot of pressure on Barry Wetzel. And I think that, as I said at the top of the pregame show, tempo. Which club can establish the type of game they would like to play? Newcastle wants to get into a racehorse basketball game and run up and down the court. Blackhawk would like the game to be in the 40s or 50s, and that is much more to their liking. And the other game going on, the other game played last night was Penn Hills against Erie McDowell. We did see a club from Erie Prep. The Canes won by 4. And of course, Penn Hills was very impressive the other evening. And if you read the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, you feel Penn Hills has the PIAA Western representation wrapped up. But of course, the games are played on the court, and not too many people would have believed this club could have beaten Bethel Park. I'm talking of the Red Hurricanes of Newcastle. Bethel Park, a much bigger basketball club, and the Canes came from 11 points down at halftime. Also have to give a lot of credit to the Newcastle followers. They have followed this team all season long. They have come out in great numbers again this evening, and it wasn't too long ago. Let's go back to 1976, when they only had 400 or 500 people at the gymnasium at the Newcastle Fieldhouse. And it's just no longer a good basketball team. Newcastle has a good basketball program, and it starts from the administration down, going from Frank Patillo down through athletic director Tom DiMuccio, through the coaching staff, head coach Don Ross, assistants Jim Payne, and the two young men that have done a fine job, assistant coach Ed Germansky, and the two men that have done a fine job at the junior high programs being Jim Payne and also Dom Morgan. And you'll hear the chant, "We are NC," quite a bit tonight from the Newcastle fans, and the Blackhawk fans below us hollering, "We won 3." 3 victories over Newcastle. The previous 2 were 47-42 and also 63-60. And shortly we will have our player introductions, and we'll be ready for the start of tonight's ball game, coming to you from the Pitt Fieldhouse, and we do hope you enjoy it. And it should be a great ball game as the Cane fans are on their feet. I don't think Pitt has got this many fans for their big basketball games down here. The Cane fans are here in large numbers, and the Canes are over talking to Coach Don Ross. And the Blackhawk Cougars talking to John Miller. And we're just about ready for our player introductions for tonight's ball game. The quarterfinals, boys AAA action, with the winner advancing to Thursday night to take on the winner of Penn Hills and Erie McDowell. And if the Canes do win tonight, hopefully we will have a broadcast for you from Thursday's game Friday evening sometime here on Cable Entertainment. And the player introductions for tonight's contest. One of the favorites from the East, by the way, representing the state playoffs, Carlisle. They were upset in the first round. And the player introduction for Blackhawk coming out, Jay Irwin. He's the senior. He wears number 51, and he averages 15 points a game for the Cougars, and he hurt Newcastle in both contests. The other starter will be Daryl Gatlin. He's a 6'6" junior, averaging 8 points per game. Also on the front line will be Rich Dickinson, a 6'3" junior, averaging 12 points per game. In the backcourt for the Cougars, number 21, probably the best shooter on the club, Dennis Mayer. He's a 6-foot senior, averages 8.6 points per game. And also Dan Vanderwall, a 6-foot senior, 4.5 points per game. Now the Red Hurricanes of Newcastle will be introduced to the crowd. And across from us, the Newcastle fans are standing. Frank Bongivingo, 6-foot senior, hit the 25-footer the other night to put the Canes into this contest. Also for the Canes will be Jimmy Brown, and he has been spectacular in the playoffs. He's a 6'2" senior, 15.8 points per game. Russell Bruce, he's a 6'1" senior. He also is on the front line along with Bob Nattell and Jimmy Brown. Bobby Nattell, this young man has come a long way in the season. Bob Nattell, a 6-foot senior, 10.5 points per game, and Barry Wetzel with his high five. And Barry Wetzel, man that makes things go for the Hurricanes. Wetzel, a 5'8" senior, averaging 12 points per game. And the head coach, Don Ross, and I just can't say enough about Don Ross. On and off the court, he's a first-class man, and he does a fine job with this basketball team. And his adjustment in the second half against Bethel Park, going into a 1-3-1 half-court trapping defense, was the difference and gave Newcastle the victory. So the preliminaries are over. We're just about ready to get underway from the Pitt Fieldhouse. As the Canes are talking to Don Ross, John Miller has his Cougars huddled around him. Blackhawk has brought a fine contingent, though, but they will be greatly outnumbered by the Red Hurricane fans here this evening. And Blackhawk just about ready to take the court. And the Canes still talking to head coach Don Ross. The Canes take the court, and I'm sure they will get another standing ovation from the Hurricane fans here this evening. Once again, the starting lineup for the Hurricanes in the backcourt, Barry Wetzel and Frank Bongivingo. The center is Jim Brown, and the forwards are Russell Bruce and Bob Nattell. For Blackhawk, in the backcourt will be Dennis Mayer, along with Dan Vanderwall, Jay Irwin, the center, and also Daryl Gatlin will be on the front line along with Rich Dickinson. So we're about ready to go. Jim Brown will jump center for the Canes. Jay Irwin to jump for Blackhawk. Toss is up, and we are underway. Tip controlled by Blackhawk, but they lose the basketball in the backcourt to Newcastle. Barry Wetzel will walk it up, and as expected, the Canes will look at a 3-2 zone. Out front, Bongivingo to Nattell off the right baseline, ball kicked out of bounds. So the Canes will set up under their own goal. No score, just underway, 7:47 to go, quarter number one. Inbounded out front with the basketball is Nattell. Nattell to Barry Wetzel, bounce pass, Bongivingo looks inside. The Bruce fires up the left-hander, good! And the Canes jump ahead 2-0. And Russell Bruce in the lane is devastating, as he was the other night against Bethel Park. Dan Vanderwall will walk it up and look at a Cane 2-3 matchup. Gets it off the left wing to Irwin. To Dickinson in the corner. Back out front to Vanderwall. To Irwin in the left corner. Vanderwall sets the offense. He's the playmaker between the circles. Over to Irwin inside. Dickinson looked like he traveled. No call. Puts it up and in. We're tied at 2. Wetzel will run it across the 10-second line for the Canes. To Bobby Nattell. Back out front to Bongivingo. Wetzel between the circles to Nattell. Back to Wetzel. Bongivingo holds it high above his head. Inside for Nattell as he saves it off the right baseline. Barry will bring it back out and set up the offense against the Blackhawk 3-2 defense. Bongivingo to Wetzel. Wetzel to Bobby Nattell off the left baseline. Back to Frank. Bobby Nattell drives baseline, and he was fouled by Dickinson. A blocking foul on Dickinson. That's his first and team first against the Cougars. So with 6:39 to go in the quarter, we're tied at 2 apiece. Bruce has scored for the Canes, and Dickinson has scored for the Cougars. Inbounded out front to Bobby Nattell. Off to Russell Bruce. Back to Nattell. Wetzel sets up the offense to Bobby Nattell, left wing. Bonjavingo above his head, and Nattell left wing. Back out front to Wetzel. To Bonjavingo. Cross court to Wetzel. Ball is stolen by Gatlin. A fine play, but saved by Bonjavingo. Bonjavingo 2-on-1 break, and the ball is knocked out of bounds. And last touched out of bounds by Darrell Gatlin. Blackhawk is definitely a bigger ball club than Newcastle, but that's nothing unusual to the Canes. Everybody they play is bigger than them. Out front to Nattell. Back to Russell Bruce. Out front to Wetzel, and he sets up the offense for the Canes. Bonjavingo high above his head holds the ball. To Nattell to Wetzel. Between the leg dribble. Off the right wing. Back to Bonjavingo from 15. Back rim, no good. Frank gets his own rebound. Inside to Bob Nattell. Put it up and in. So the Canes hitting the offensive boards and lead 4-2. Newcastle coming out a little bit farther with the 2-3 defense. Vanderwall to Irwin in the corner to Dickinson. Back out to Vanderwall. He's double teamed and needs help, and Wetzel takes it away from him. Wetzel the line to the lane to the hoop, gives it up. The Russell Bruce put it up, and they call traveling. And the Canes had a golden opportunity on the 3-on-1 break, but they turned the basketball over. So it's 4-2 Newcastle. Vanderwall walks it up. He'll cross the 10-second line and throw it back to Irwin off the left side. Irwin to Vanderwall. A very experienced Blackhawk club. In the corner to Mayer. They look inside. Ball stolen inside by the Canes. Coming down with the basketball for the Canes is Jimmy Brown, and he looked for Russell Bruce and threw it out of bounds. So the Canes have 2 consecutive turnovers after having golden opportunities on the fast break. Blackhawk will like to slow the game down. As Vanderwall walks it across the 10-second line, Newcastle now in a 1-3-1 half-court trap. Vanderwall pulls up with the dribble. Off to Mayer. He drives in the key to Irwin from 10 feet. Shot up and no good. Ball batted off the glass, taken down by Nattell. Nattell to Wetzel. Wetzel from 15. Be there. It is! Canes lead 6-2. Vanderwall for Blackhawk across the timeline. Over to Irwin. Irwin penetrates. Now to Mayer from the left wing. Shot is up. Shot is no good. Tip is no good. Canes control the glass. Out to Bonjavingo. He takes it in, and there was no call. It looked like he got fouled, but apparently a good play by Jay Irwin. And Irwin gets it off to Dan Vanderwall. 4:14 to go in the quarter. Canes lead at 6-2. And the Cougars want a timeout. They take a timeout. So 4:13 to go. The Newcastle Partisans are on their feet. Newcastle leads it 6-2. And the Canes have done a fine job on the defensive glass of the early going, only giving Blackhawk 1 opportunity, and also have been able to get the ball out. They had a couple 3-on-1 breaks where they turned the ball over, but also Bonjavingo had the ball stripped from him. And that's the game Newcastle wants to play. They want to get the ball out, and they want to run with it. Early scoring for the Canes. Bruce has a field goal, Wetzel in with the field goal, and Nattell with the field goal. Their scoring has been balanced all season. For Blackhawk, their only scoring come from Dickinson. So 4:13 to go, quarter number 1. Hope you're enjoying it. Bob Hannon bringing you the play-by-play. And once again, very appreciative of Ralph Peluso and Cable Entertainment for bringing this game to you and making it possible. And this is a community service and brought to you in the public interest by Cable Entertainment. So Blackhawk has the basketball after they talk with John Miller and the Canes talk with Don Ross. And Vanderwall seems to be having trouble against the 1-3-1 half-court trap, pulling up with his dribble. Irwin inbounds to Vanderwall. This time to Mayer off the right wing. Bounce pass to Gatlin. Gatlin out front to Irwin with the head fake, no shot. Back to Irwin. Vanderwall pulls up with the dribble to Gatlin to Dickinson inside the paint. Puts up the shot. No good. Rebound. Bobby Nattell as he tears the leather away from the rim. Here come the Canes. Barry Wetzel kicks it off the split, but Bob Nattell retrieves it. Wetzel to Bonjavingo to Wetzel. To Bobby Natel inside the paint, puts up the shot, good. And the Canes lead it 8-2, and Newcastle getting the ball inside very effectively, such as they did in the second half against Bethel Park. Mayer with the basketball, drives inside, cross-court pass to Irwin, and he took a couple steps, and the Canes get it back. So the Canes have had it their way so far, 8-2 Newcastle, 3:23 to go in the quarter. Blackhawk picking up with full court pressure. Vanderwall picks up Wetzel. Looks like a 1-3-1 full court trapping defense. In the middle to Bruce. Bruce has it knocked away, but comes up with it to Jimmy Brown. They stay in the 3-2 defense. Wetzel off the left wing from 20, front rim, no good. Rebound Vanderwall. Vanderwall for the Cougars across the 10-second line. Looks inside, Dickinson open, Dickinson puts it up and in. That time they beat the 1-3-1, and Dickinson has all 4 points for Blackhawk. Wetzel gets through the pressure with no problem. Canes will set up their offense. Frank Bonjavingo to Bob Natel. Natel pulls up, back to Frank from 15, find it, no good. Tip up, and good. So the Canes are getting the second opportunities. 10-4 Newcastle with 2:27 to go in quarter number 1. Mayer off the right wing, looks for the shot, can't find it. Back to Vanderwall, he very seldom shoots. To Irwin, cross course to Mayer, he'll fire from 16, and no good. Tip up, no good. Tip up again, good. And Vanderwall picks Wetzel up. Wetzel cross court passes it to Bonjavingo, and the Canes get it across the 10-second line. Russell Bruce with the ball out front, back to Barry. Barry bounce pass to Natel, back to Frank. Wetzel sets up the offense and calls out instructions to the two inside people, Bruce and Brown. Cross-court pass to Russell Bruce. Baseline left, he'll let it fly from 16, no good. Rebound Brown, puts it up and in. And the Canes are getting the second and third opportunities. 12-6 Newcastle. Vanderwall for the Cougars. Bounce pass inside to Gatlin, put it up and in, and he was fouled. And that was an excellent bounce pass from Dickinson as he found Gatlin breaking down the key. So with 1:25 to go in the quarter, Canes lead at 12-8. And we'll have our first free throw of the contest. And Dickinson checks out for Blackhawk, and now checking in for the Cougars will be Brian Mansell. He's a 6'2" senior, averages 5.9 points per game. Darryl Gatlin at the free throw line, he'll get one. Gatlin takes a few dribbles. Sights it, shoots it, and no good, front rim. Rebound pulled down inside by Russell Bruce, and we have a foul call inside. And the call is against number 43, pushing off inside, that being Brian Mansell. And it's been a well-played first quarter, very few fouls. And for the Cougars, that is only their first team foul. The Canes have the basketball. Wetzel to Bonjavingo, cross court to Russell Bruce. The pressure of Blackhawk as of yet has not given the Canes too much trouble. Right wing Wetzel. Off to Jimmy Brown, makes his move and fires, no good. Offensive rebound, Bobby Natel, and he had the ball stripped out of bounds, but they say it was last touched inside by Jay Irwin. So Canes lead it by 4. 1:03 to go in the quarter. And we have another substitution. This time, Rich Dickinson checking back in, and he will check in out front for the point guard, Dan Vanderwall, and Blackhawk going with a very big lineup now, taking out Vanderwall, the smallest player on the court. Russell Bruce for the Canes. Shot rejected inside. Rebound. Jimmy Brown put up the layup, no good. And Jay Irwin clears the glass for Blackhawk. So the Canes had a couple chances there. With 49 seconds to go in the quarter, Newcastle by 4. Mayer for the Cougars. To Jay Irwin. Irwin at the foul line. Lets it go off the back rim. No good. Gets his own rebound. Puts it up. No good. But we do have a foul inside. And the foul inside goes against Russell Bruce. That's his first. And Paul Schweikert will check in for the Canes. Paul Schweikert, he's a 6-foot junior. And Schweikert will take the place of Russell Bruce. So Jay Irwin will go to the free throw line. He has been the big gun all season long for the Cougars, averaging 15 points a game, and he will shoot 2. First one airborne, good. Jay Irwin will get one more. Blackhawk all season along with Newcastle. They have both been excellent free throw shooting clubs. Irwin bends the knees, lets it fly, good again. 12 to 10, 39 seconds to go in the quarter. And the Canes may go for the last shot as they spread out the offense, and they do. Wetzel plays catch with Natel, now tucks the ball under his right shoulder. Blackhawk will come out of their defense, but still passively coming out and putting pressure on the ball. A very, very big lineup for Blackhawk right now. And the referee says you have to come out and play defense, Blackhawk, or there will be a technical call. We're down to 12 seconds to go. Newcastle leads 12-10. Schweikert, cross-court pass to Natel. Back to Barry Wetzel. Canes will get into the offense now. Bonjavingo, baseline left, gets it inside Schweikert. Turnaround jumper, no good. Gets it back, fires again, and the buzzer had sounded. And 1 quarter of basketball is history from the Pitt Fieldhouse. And the Canes lead at 12 to 6. Newcastle is led by as many as 6. At 12 to 6, they led, and the Cougars scoring the last 4 points of the first quarter. Let's take a look at some first quarter scoring. Jay Irwin in with 2 free throws. Gatlin has 4, and Dickinson has 4 to round out the scoring for the Cougars. For the Canes, Brown with 2. Bonjavingo has not yet scored. Russell Bruce with 4. Barry Wetzel with 2, and Bob Natel also in the contest with 4 points. Personal foul situation, Russell Bruce does have 2 personal fouls. Jimmy Brown with 1 for Blackhawk, Rich Dickinson with 1, and also Mansell with 1 personal foul. So it's 12 to 10. We're getting ready for second quarter action as the Canes played well in the first quarter. They had a couple opportunities to score on the break. They weren't able to take advantage of it, but they did get the ball out very well, and they do lead by 2 points as we prepare for quarter number 2. And Russell Bruce is checked back into the lineup for the Canes. And for Blackhawk, they will put Dan Vanderwall back into the game. And taking a rest for them will be Darryl Gatlin. So Irwin to jump center against Jimmy Brown. A first quarter that we expected. We expect a close game throughout. Tip control by the Canes. Frank Bonjavingo gives it to Wetzel against the 3-2. Bob Natel holds the ball high above his head. Wetzel in the corner. To Bonjavingo to Bruce. Wetzel inside to Bruce, put it up, knocked away, gets his own rebound, put it up again, no good. Blackhawk the rebound. And Jay Irwin rips down the carom for the Cougars. So the Canes come out and put on full court pressure against Vanderwall. Canes now in a man-to-man. Vanderwall goes baseline, no call. It looked like he traveled to Irwin, put it up and in. Game now tied at 12. Wetzel quickly up for the Canes. Newcastle will slow it down and get into their offense. Bonjavingo left wing. Natel to Barry Wetzel. Back to Frank. Natel goes baseline, put it up, knocked away. Tip up, no good. Rebound Blackhawk. Ball knocked around inside, and the Cougars come up with the loose basketball. Coming up with the loose ball inside was Brian Mansell. So the Cougars have an opportunity to take their first lead. 6:53 to go in quarter number 2. Canes in a man-to-man. They get it inside to Dickinson, put it up, rattle around, no good. Tip up, no good again. Canes get the ball out, and there's a foul, and I believe it's against Brian Vanderwall, and it is. And that'll be Vanderwall's first team foul, number 3, against Blackhawk. So the Canes have switched up. They started out the ball game in a 2-3 defense, quickly went to a 1-3-1 half-court trap. Now the Canes are showing man-to-man defense. So the Canes walk it up. Barry Wetzel between the circles, and the Canes in the spread offense with the game tied at 12, wanting the Cougars to come out and have to play Newcastle man-to-man. And with the game being tied or Newcastle with the lead, the Cougars must come out and play man-to-man. If they have the lead, Newcastle must attack. So Vanderwall takes Wetzel. Wetzel penetrates, gets it off to Bruce, lets it fly. Good. I'll tell you something, folks. If Vanderwall takes Wetzel one-on-one, Barry will take him to school. Canes lead at 14-12, 6 minutes to go in the quarter. And Wetzel is called for a foul as Vanderwall crosses the 10-second line. That's foul number 1 on Wetzel and team foul number 4 against the Canes. Both clubs have shot extremely well from the free throw line. In the playoffs, Newcastle hitting 81%, which is just phenomenal. So the Cougars to inbound. Irwin to pull the trigger. Trigger gets it in to Vanderwall. Vanderwall will walk it up. Right-handed dribble against Wetzel. Canes stay in a man-to-man, and we do have a call inside, and it's a push-off against Blackhawk. Dennis Mayer pushing off on Frank Bonjavingo. So the Canes get it back in team foul number 4 against Blackhawk. So 14-12 is our score. 5:59 to go in our first half of action. Bonjavingo inbounds to Natal, back to Barry Wetzel. Blackhawk does come out of the 3-2 defense with just passive pressure out front. Bonjavingo off the right wing to Bobby Natal. The Canes feel they are a much quicker club than Blackhawk and want to see Blackhawk have to play them man-to-man, and now they have called a technical. Yes, they have. They have warned the Cougars twice. Now they knock up a technical. John Miller says we need, we want, and we will get a timeout. So the Cougars do take a timeout with 5:40 to go in the first half. 14-12 Newcastle. And let's take a look here and see who shoots the technical. Most occasions this year, Barry Wetzel has shot the technical. At one time this year, Bob Natal hit 26 straight free throws, and Russell Bruce was on a string of 12 straight free throws. And the Cane fans are up in large numbers screaming, "We are NC," and you will hear that quite a bit this evening. It is a low-scoring game, and you'd have to feel it's the type of game Blackhawk would make, but the Canes are getting good shots. They have been able to get the ball out and run the break on occasion. So Newcastle to shoot the technical. The rule states you warn a club once, and after one warning, if they don't come out and play defense, and then there's the technical called against the defense, which was called against Blackhawk. So Bob Natal, the 6-foot senior, will step to the free throw line to shoot the technical for Newcastle. Natal has been on a hot streak lately at the free throw line. As I mentioned, one time, 26 in a row. All we need now, Bobby, is one to give the Canes a 3-point lead. Bobby Natal gets the basketball. Who will ever forget the free throws he made down at Norwin? Bends the knees, lets it fly. No good, off the back rim. So the Canes still maintain possession of the basketball and do have a 2-point lead at 5:40 to go, quarter number 2. And Frank Bonjavingo to pull the trigger at midcourt for the Canes. Gets it into Natal to Barry Wetzel. So Blackhawk coming out in 1-3-1 pressure. Inside Jimmy Brown, head fake, no shot. Now he puts it up, good! 16-12. Jimmy Brown is 6'2", and he plays as though he's about 6'5". Newcastle now stays in the man-to-man with Bob Natal taking Jay Irwin off the high post. Ball out front to Brian Mansell, knocked away for Mansell, but he gets it back. Offensive foul. And Barry Wetzel took the charge inside, and the Canes get the ball back with the 4-point lead. So Newcastle switching up their defenses, trying to confuse the Cougars here this evening. Blackhawk in full court pressure. Wetzel with the left-handed dribble for the Canes against the pressure. Goes by Vanderwall as though he wasn't even there. Out front, gets it off to Bobby Natal. Bonjavingo. Back out front to Wetzel. Wetzel with the dribble, makes his move to the hoop. Inside Bonjavingo from 10, good! Canes lead at 18-12. 4:40 to go in the quarter. Newcastle stays in their man-to-man defense. Off the right wing, Mansell high above his head. Off to Vanderwall. He can't find anybody open. Ball inside to Mansell, puts it up and in. Vanderwall with the assist. Canes get it to Wetzel. Off to Bonjavingo, gets it down off the left wing to Russell Bruce. Back out front, Bonjavingo. Frank looks for Wetzel and finds him. No call out front. There was some contact. Back to Bonjavingo, over to Wetzel off the right wing. Bob Natal gets it inside. Bruce goes up and ball knocked away. Ball was knocked away by Rich Dickinson, and Mansell came down with the rebound. The Canes fans don't like it. They thought there was a foul. 3:46 to go till halftime. Canes lead it 18-14. Mansell off the right wing. Back to Vanderwall. Inside, ball stolen away. Canes get it out on the break. Frank Bonjavingo with the ball. Pulls up. Be there, Frank. It's no good. He shot an air ball, but he was fouled. He was fouled by Vanderwall, and that is Vanderwall's second. And Daryl Gatlin will check back into the contest for Blackhawk, and he will check in for Brian Mansell. Both clubs primarily use 6 players. Schweikert off the bench for the Canes, and either Gatlin or Mansell off the bench for Blackhawk, whichever one doesn't start. So the Canes lead it by 4, and Frank Bonjavingo will step to the free throw line. A heck of a competitor, this kid. He lets the first one go up and in. Some people may malign Frank Bonjavingo with the way he plays on the court, but if you give me 10 Frank Bonjavingos, I'm going to win a lot of basketball games. Sights it, shoots it, and good. 20-14, Canes by 6. They match their biggest lead. Bring the basketball up court for Blackhawk is Dennis Mayer, and Vanderwall has checked out of the contest. Mayer is bringing the basketball up. Off the left wing, the Gatlin lets it fly in and out and in again. So once again, the Cougars going with the very big lineup, sending Vanderwall to the bench. Out front, Wetzel off to Bonjavingo. Back to Barry. To Frank. Wetzel to Bonjavingo. Canes play keep away. And now in the lineup for Blackhawk, let's check it as Craig McCowan is checked in. Mansell and Vanderwall are on the bench. Barry Wetzel playing keep away. Over to Bonjavingo. 2:37 to go. Canes lead it by 4. Barry Wetzel holds it out front. As long as the Canes have the lead, they are able to do this. If they fall behind, they will have to make penetration. Back to Barry Wetzel. The Canes fans love it. The Cougar fans voice their disapproval. Bonjavingo inside. Got it to fall. Excuse me, check it. That's Bobby Nattell. We are high above. We are high above Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, and sometimes it's hard to tell Bonjavingo and Nattell apart. Blackhawk down. Shot goes up off the front rim. No good. And lost out of bounds. Last touch by Rich Dickinson. And we are going to credit the field goal to Frank Bonjavingo. As I said, it's very difficult to tell from up here, but we do believe it was Bonjavingo that hit the shot. Wetzel will walk it up for the Canes, spin dribble across the 10-second line, and we'll call a timeout. So Newcastle leads 22-16, 1 minute and 50 seconds to go in the first half, and the Cane fans are standing. Once again, as we mentioned, I am very surprised the Canes have spread out the offense. I thought they would do it in the second half, and the only way you can spread the offense out is to have the lead, and that is something Don Ross wanted to get the lead early, force Blackhawk to play man-to-man, because to be truthful about it, there is nobody on the Blackhawk club that can play Barry Wetzel man-to-man. And this broadcast being brought to you by Cable Entertainment as a public service. And once again, our thanks to Ralph Peluso at Cable Entertainment for setting this broadcast up along with the previous two with Tom DiMuccio, the athletic director at Newcastle High School. I'm sure Blackhawk does not want to have to play Newcastle man-to-man because they won't be able to do it. They're trying to come out and put pressure on with a 1-3-1 half-court trap, but they haven't been able to do it. I'm sure the Canes are well schooled on what to do against the trap. They've been able to get very high percentage shots here in the first half. So Dan Vanderwall checks back into the contest for Blackhawk. The Canes have stayed with their starting 5. Schweikert played sparingly for Russell Bruce. Both clubs do not go that deep on the bench. Newcastle leads by 6. They have a chance to take their biggest lead at 8 if they can score here. Bonjavingo to inbound. Gets it into Bobby Nattell. Back to Wetzel. To Bonjavingo. And it looked like Frank was fouled, and he was fouled. And they call the foul on Daryl Gatlin. And that is Daryl Gatlin's first, and will send Bonjavingo to the free throw line to shoot 1 and 1. So Bonjavingo goes to the charity stripe. Bonjavingo has been there 3 times this evening and has hit on 2. Bonjavingo takes a long look, lets it go, no good off the back rim. Rebound taken down by Brown. His shot up, no good. So the Canes had a chance to increase their lead to 7 and possibly 8, but they weren't able to take advantage. Newcastle stays in their man-to-man defense. Pass inside, taken down by Gatlin. He lets it fly and hits it. So 22-18, and that is Gatlin's 8th point. Canes face the full court pressure. Russell Bruce gets it into Jimmy Brown. Back to Russell, put it up. Ball was blocked away, but they call a foul. And Russell Bruce will go to the free throw line to shoot 2, and that is the 3rd foul on Dan Vanderwall, the Blackhawk point guard. So the Canes hoping the 3rd time is a charm. Hopefully they can knock off the Cougars tonight and advance to the semifinals of the state playoffs. Russell Bruce has come a long way, folks, from a season ago. Dan Vanderwall will take a seat, and checking in will be Cross. And Dan Cross checks in for the Cougars, and Blackhawk going to their bench much more tonight than what they did the first 2 times they faced the Canes. Bruce takes a long look. The left-hander lets it go. Front rim and in. So the Canes now take their lead to 23-18 with 1:13 to go in the half. Russell Bruce and Bob Natel are the 2 most improved players on the club. Second one airborne, good again. 24-18. Canes pick up in full court pressure. They will try to pressure Dan Cross, who has just come into the game, and he will handle the point guard position. Over to Cross, makes his move to the hoop, puts up a shot, no good. Tip again, no good. Irwin with the rebound, and he was fouled inside. And Blackhawk really crashing the offensive boards now. 57 seconds to go in the quarter. The Canes lead it 24-18. Foul goes against Bob Natel. That is his first. And the foul situation for the Canes, only Russell Bruce has 2. So Irwin goes to the charity stripe, and he will shoot 2. Irwin has been there 2 other times this evening and has knocked them both home. And he does it again. 24-19. Canes lead it by 5. Canes may go for 1 shot when they get the basketball. Irwin takes a long look, sights it, shoots it, no good off the front rim, knocked out of bounds, last touch by the Cougars. And that's an upset in itself, seeing Jay Irwin miss a free throw, because he killed the Canes at the field house at the free throw line coming down the stretch. Wetzel brings it up for the Canes against the pressure. To Bob Natel. Inside, Russell Bruce. Back out front to Frank Bonjavingo. Bruce coming up on the high post to get the pass if the wings are not open. Barry Wetzel spinning between the circles as the Canes lead it by 5 with 30 seconds to go in the half. To Bob Natel. Down low to Russell Bruce. Russell Bruce loses it as he tries to get rid of the basketball, and Blackhawk comes up with it. So it could be a costly turnover for the Canes. The Cougars get it. 13 seconds to go. Irwin looks inside. Ball taken away by the Canes. Barry Wetzel to the line, to the lane, between the legs pass, and Jimmy Brown lost it out of bounds. Cannot fault the pass. It was a fine pass by Barry. 6 seconds to go in the half. And Dennis Mayer will check back in for the Cougars. And he will check in for Eric Rhodes. Canes will put on full court pressure. They lead it 24-19. Irwin did pull the trigger. Fires it long down court to Mayer. Makes his move to the hoop to Dickinson, and it looked like he traveled, but there was no call. Now there is a call. They do call traveling with 3 seconds to go in the half. Can Bonjavingo do it with 3 seconds and knock one home from about 30 feet? Canes lead it by 5. They get it inbounds to Bonjavingo. He lets it fly from half court. Not this time, Frank. But the Canes have dominated the first half, and Newcastle goes to the locker room leading 24-19, and the Canes partisans are on their feet. And we do have another half of basketball to bring you, but right now it's halftime. Newcastle leading 24-19, and we will take a look at some of the crowd here this evening at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse on the campus of the University of Pittsburgh. Canes came in tonight, overall record 25-4, Blackhawk 23-5. Hopefully after tonight, the Canes can notch up win number 26 and go for win number 27 Thursday evening, either against Penn Hills or Erie McDowell. Let's take a look at some halftime statistics. First for Blackhawk, let's check their scoring. Jay Irwin checks in with 5 points, 3 for 4 at the free throw line, and only 1 field goal. And the Canes have done an excellent job defensively in shutting down Jay Irwin, the 15-point per game scorer for the Cougars. Gatlin in with 8 points. He has 4 field goals. Darrell Gatlin, a 6'6" junior, has played probably the best first half of any Cougar. Also Dickinson in with 4 points, and the only other player to score has been Brian Mansell, and he has 2 points for the Cougars. Check the foul situation for the Cougars. Irwin has no personal fouls. Gatlin with 1, Dickinson with 1, Mayer with 1. Vanderwall, the only player for Blackhawk in serious foul trouble, and he has 3 personal fouls, and Brian Mansell in with 2 personal fouls. Let's take a look at the Newcastle side of it. Jimmy Brown in with 4 points. He has 2 field goals, and check it. Jimmy Brown does not have a foul. That is a key, because if you remember the Bethel Park game, Jimmy Brown had to sit on the bench with 3 fouls for the remaining portion of the first half, and that is when Bethel Park built their lead from 4 to 11, and Jimmy has gotten in foul trouble on a few occasions this year and have to keep that young man out of foul trouble. Frank Bonjavingo has played a fine first half. 2 for 3 from the foul line, also knocked in 2 field goals for 6 points. Russell Bruce in with 8 points, 3 field goals, 2 for 2 from the charity stripe. Barry Wetzel with 2 points, but he has played a fine floor game, and he has run the 4-corner offense for the Newcastle Red Hurricanes. Let's not call it a 4-corner offense. It's a spread offense with the Canes looking to get a good shot off of the 4-corner offense, or the spread offense, as Don Ross likes to call it. Bobby Natel in with 2 field goals, 0 for 1 at the free throw line, and he has 4 points. Canes outscored the Cougars in the first half 12-10, and Newcastle came back in the second half to outscore the Cougars 12-9. So it is a low-scoring game. If you take a look at the numbers, you feel this tempo favors Blackhawk. But you must remember, the Canes have slowed the basketball game down. They have taken the air out of the ball and have used their spread offense, and Newcastle has shot a very high percentage in the first half, and they have gotten excellent shots from the field. And I'll tell you, I haven't seen a high school basketball team for a long time run the spread offense the way the Canes do. And they work on it very hard, and I'm sure Don Ross has to be satisfied with his club going in 5 points up at halftime. Also, Newcastle has done a good job keeping Blackhawk off the offensive glass. The Cougars do not get that many second and third opportunities. Newcastle came out, 2-3 defense, quickly switched to a 1-3-1 half-court trap, and it looked as though for the most part in the second quarter, Newcastle did play man-to-man, but hopefully after the game we can talk to Coach Ross, and it looks more like a whatchamacallit defense, because he has players just scattering around everywhere trying to confuse Blackhawk. For the Cougars, they do not want to have to play Newcastle man-to-man. They came out in a 3-2. Newcastle says, we're going to hold the basketball against you and make you come out. The Cougars did not come out. They did have a technical called against them. Then they came out in a 1-3-1. John Miller refuses to play Newcastle man-to-man. If he doesn't play Newcastle man-to-man, the next basketball game he'll be playing will be next season, getting ready for the Section 2 season, because the Canes are, I'm sure, going to come out in the second half, be very patient, and get a high percentage shot. As we said, we are at halftime. We're scanning the crowd here at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, and a lot of Newcastle people down here this evening, well over 3,000 to support the Red Hurricanes, and they've had fine support all year long. Toughest ticket in town for the Blackhawk game in Newcastle. A lot of people had to be turned away, did not get a ticket to the contest. And I think we do have to commend, to some extent, the PIAA and the WPIAL for setting this game up at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, where the seating capacity is close to 7,000, where if they would have played at Clarion or Geneva or Westminster College, they would have only been able to seat 3,000, and Newcastle brings over 3,000 people themselves. There is a good contingent here tonight from Blackhawk, but nowhere near the amount of people Newcastle brought down here to watch this basketball game. Let's try to set up the picture for you if the Canes do win tonight. They will play Thursday evening at a site to be determined against the winner of Penn Hills and Erie McDowell. Penn Hills was beaten in the WPIAL playoffs in overtime by Blackhawk. Penn Hills is a fine basketball team. I saw them play Latrobe. They're very similar to the Canes. They like to run the fast break. They're probably height-wise equal to Newcastle, and it's just amazing. Last year, Uniontown wins the state championship. Biggest player, 6'2". Now this year, Newcastle and Blackhawk vying for the state championship. Blackhawk's biggest player, 6'5". Penn Hills, their biggest player, probably 6'2" or 6'3", and of course the Canes, Jimmy Brown, that's when you're stretching it if you're going to say he's 6'2", but he plays as though he's about 6'5". The Canes do win tonight. They will play the winner of Penn Hills and Erie McDowell. We don't know too much about Erie McDowell, but we know Erie Prep was a fine basketball team, and supposedly Erie McDowell is a much better club than Erie Prep. If the Canes would win Thursday, it's on our way to Hershey, and that game would take place Saturday evening. As I talked with Bill Jones, who is down here from Cable Entertainment this evening, hopefully if the Canes win tonight, we will have a broadcast for you Friday evening on the Thursday game. We will have a broadcast Friday evening on the Thursday game, and if they do win Thursday, we are going to be on our way to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and that game will be sometime around 12 o'clock on Sunday. But there's a big question of whether the Canes can win here tonight, and if they do win here tonight, they must beat the winner of Penn Hills and Erie McDowell. As we talked before the game, the #1 rated team in the state, Carlisle, was upset in the first round of the playoffs. They lost by a point, so probably from the east, the best team may be Abington, but we just have to wait and see what happens down there. First thing at hand, the Canes must win here this evening. They do lead at the half, and the score is 24-19. A couple things I'd like to comment on the first half. Unusual to the two previous games when Blackhawk played Newcastle. Blackhawk only used 6 and 7 people. They went to their bench much deeper tonight, and they did go to their bench with Eric Rhodes and also Dan Cross. And Eric Rhodes and Cross did not play in the first two contests against Newcastle. One reason Blackhawk went to the bench, Dan Vanderwall, their point guard, picked up 3 personal fouls. But if we take a look at it, once again, the bottom line, the key to the first half, Newcastle got the lead. They went into their spread offense. They were able to control the game the way they wanted to control it, forced Blackhawk to come out of their 3-2 defense, and also Jay Irwin only scoring 5 points. Leading scorer for the Canes in the first half, Russell Bruce in with 8 points for Blackhawk, and Darrell Gatlin in with 8 points. This game is far from over. Blackhawk, before the game, had a chance just for a minute to talk to John Miller, and he feels that his players don't think that Newcastle can beat them. And on the other side of the ledger, you might feel a psychological advantage. The Blackhawk already have beaten Newcastle twice, but that's not the case, folks. The Canes feel they are a much better team than Blackhawk, and they feel they are going to beat the Cougars here this evening. And also doing the filming tonight and doing a fine job on the first half, Ralph DiMuccio and also Jeff Buckner, and we'd like to thank them for doing their fine job on the filming. 2 students, and they are non-professional students, so folks, you're not going to get a CBS broadcast, but they are doing a good job, Ralph DiMuccio and Jeff Buckner, and we appreciate all the help they are giving us here this evening. So we are at halftime. Blackhawk back on the court, warming up. They lead it, or they trail it, that is, 24-19. The Canes, as of yet, have not come back onto the court. They are still talking with Don Ross in the locker room, going over what they will try to do here in the second half to maintain their lead and go on to the semifinals. Just a couple minutes to go before the start of our second half, and the Cane fans are across from us, sitting where the Pitt students would sit. And as we mentioned, there are a lot of people here from Newcastle tonight, and when I talked to Ralph Faluso at Cable Entertainment, he told me Bill Jones will be coming down with us, and he has helped us out immensely tonight. And Bill would have crawled here from the word I hear. He wants to see the Canes play, and hopefully we'll be making a trip Thursday evening to watch Newcastle play, and once again Saturday evening. Let's just take a look back at this season. I remember back in November I talked with Don Ross. Frank Bongivingo was injured. Jimmy Brown was injured. Russell Bruce and Bob Nattell. Let's face it, folks, they were big question marks. Could they play in varsity competition? Here's Bob Nattell, who just 2 years ago wanted to play CYO basketball. Here's Russell Bruce, who never played varsity basketball. And now they have a club vying for the state championship. The only player they knew would be there all year was Barry Wetzel, but Frank Bongivingo and Jim Brown did come around. And as I said, these are a great bunch of young kids. I know most of them. They're fine young men. They're all gentlemen. And Don Ross will never have another basketball team like this club. And if you couldn't make it down for the game last night, hopefully you can get out and watch the Canes play Thursday if they do hang on and win here tonight. And as I said, when we do bring this game to you, it will be over. If you get a chance, if the Canes hang on and win, watch the Canes. Get out and support this club because it's well worth it. And they're a great bunch of kids, and they're doing with a lot of hustle and determination. So we're about ready to go for second half action. From the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse on the campus of the University of Pittsburgh, it's Newcastle 24, Blackhawk 19. John Miller talking to his Cougars. Don Ross talking to the Red Hurricanes of Newcastle. Both clubs talking to their respective coaches. And the first 4 minutes of the second half will be a key. If Newcastle can control the first 4 minutes, build the lead up to 7, 8, or 9 points. Blackhawk is not that good of a club when they have to play coming from behind. So the Canes take the court. It'll be in the backcourt, Bonjavingo and Wetzel, Jimmy Brown at center, and also on the front line will be Russell Bruce and Bob Natel as the Cane fans are on their feet. Let's see who Blackhawk will start in the second half. They will go with their starting five, and that starting five being Rich Dickinson, Jay Irwin, Dan Vanderwall, Brian Mansell, and Dennis Mayer. So we are ready to go for second half action. The Canes will move from left to right. Jimmy Brown to jump against Jay Irwin. And we are in see can be heard. Tip is controlled in the backcourt by Blackhawk. Dan Vanderwall playing with 3 personal fouls to face the Canes man-to-man defense. Off to Mayer, and Mayer lets it go and hits it. So Mayer quickly gets on the scoreboard in the second half and cuts the Canes lead down to 3. Mayer was shut out in the first half, folks, and he's a fine shooter, but he gets on the scoreboard in the second half to cut the Cane lead to 3. 7:34 to go in the third quarter. Bonjavingo out front to Barry Wetzel. To Bob Natel, back to Frank. To Bobby, drives baseline. Back out front. Barry Wetzel. Place catch with Bonjavingo. Let him come out after you is what Don Ross wants. Wetzel penetrates, gets it inside. Russell Bruce puts it up, shot blocked away by Irwin. So Blackhawk has a chance to pull within 1. It appears Newcastle playing a man-to-man defense, but they're switching up quite a bit. Out front to Vanderwall. Now the Canes drop back into a 2-3. Mayer double team, looks for help, gets it back out front to Vanderwall. They're looking for Irwin inside off the low post. Jimmy Brown, Bob Natel, and Russell Bruce have done a good job inside shutting that down. Mayer lets it fly again and hits it again. So Newcastle's one-time 5-point lead has been cut to 1. Bonjavingo for the Canes across the 10-second line. The Blackhawk contingent is on their feet. Barry Wetzel, bounce pass inside. Russell Bruce, glass, no good. Ball batted around inside, taken down by Darryl Gatlin. And Blackhawk once again can take the lead. They have scored 4 straight points. Mayer again, no good this time. Wetzel with the rebound. Canes on the run. Barry Wetzel between the legs, goes in. What a shot! Oh, Barry Wetzel. 26-23. Anybody that questions this young man is not the finest point guard in the area, let me see a better one. Canes back on top by 3.